You're listening to the Built for This podcast, powered by LeTourneau University.
For me, I love civil engineering and I love structures in particular.
Yeah.
Love, even in the room that we're sitting in right now, I'm looking at the ceiling. Okay, so the load's going here and here and here. I'm in my mid to late 30s. My career is good. Most everything else is not. I have somewhat of an analytical mind, and faith needed to make some sort of logical sense. And Keller lays it all out so beautifully and points you to C.S. Lewis, who, in some ways even more logical than Keller. Yeah. I am the Dean of Engineering at the Christian Polytechnic University, and I have no opinion about AI. This is professional malpractice. This is not okay. Studying engineering is actually strongly associated with faith decline in college.
Wow.
That's not what I found. What I found is faith really grows here. For 40 or 50 years, they've been saying, these egg-headed engineers, that can do, all the pencil calculations, have their calculator just so, really can talk to a computer well, but they can't talk to people. We have, I think, what will be the nation's first engineering relationships lab.
Yeah.
The T-shaped lab, if you will. Frankly, that's what determines the strength and the breadth and the depth of someone's career, typically in engineering. Yeah. We're kind of putting our effort right where our talk is.
Welcome to LeTourneau University's Built for This podcast. It is my pleasure to welcome Dr. Mike McGinnis into a conversation today. Dr. Michael J. McGinnis is the Dean of School of Engineering and Engineering Technology here at LeTourneau University in Longview, Texas. And not only is it fun for me to get to have a conversation with a colleague and a friend, but we get to do this face-to-face in person when often my guests, we have to remote in. And so this is going to be a special conversation, and I've been looking forward to this for many weeks now. So thank you for your time, Mike, for joining us. And we're going to dive into all sorts of questions to get to know you and your work a little bit better. But first, if you would, give me the opportunity to introduce you to our audience, those who may not know you. So here it is. Dr. Michael McGinnis leads at LeTourneau University as the Dean of the School of Engineering and Engineering Technology a number of programs spanning civil, mechanical, electrical, biomedical, and welding engineering. With more than 15 years of experience in engineering education and academic leadership, including prior roles as Associate Dean, Department Chair, and Interim Dean, he is a nationally recognized voice in engineering pedagogy, professional formation, and the integration of faith and technology. Dr. McGinnis is the author of The T-Shaped Engineer in the Age of AI, Formation, Vocation, and Christian Education in the Digital Age, hot off the presses, published by Whippenstock Publishers just a few months ago, and I brought my very own copy here, and it is important to me to have my copy, not just a copy, and you can tell it's been worn, it's been thrown in the back of the car, it's been in a backpack, it's traveled with me on planes, and not only did I have the privilege of reading an advanced copy, but now that it's in print, I've reread it, and even though I am not an engineer, I cannot put this book down. It is so artfully, creatively, and winsomely done that this actually is a book for those who may or may not be an engineer, but you'll be especially interested if you're thinking about what to do with AI, how to think about education and formation and what's good for human flourishing. So anyway, we'll dive into this in just a bit, but really excited about this book and hoping that everyone gets their own copy. But not only that, Dr. McGinnis writes a Substack called Stories from a T-Shaped Engineer, where he explores engineering and leadership and Christian formation through narrative and reflection, and includes his own artwork in it, which I think actually is very helpful and brings a lot of those stories to life. His work advances a distinctive framework for education that integrates technical competence, relational depth, and Christ-centered purpose, a vision he describes as the T-shaped life. We will hear more about that. His scholarship includes more than 100 publications, with over 20 focused specifically on mentoring and the professional formation of engineers. His work has been recognized nationally, including recently a Best Paper nomination at the Christian Engineering Conference, and he has presented at venues such as the American Society for Engineering Education, the European Bridge Conference, and places like the University of Notre Dame. Dr. McGinnis is the founder of the Christian Engineering Dean's Council and a leader within the Christian Engineering Society. He convenes national conversations on engineering formation and was part of the team that recently launched a national Christian engineering teaching workshop to support faculty development across institutions. Prior to his academic career, he worked as a structural engineer designing nuclear submarines at General Dynamics Electric Boat, bringing industry experience into his teaching and leadership. He is indeed a Yukon Husky, with both an undergraduate and master's degree in civil engineering, and then earned a PhD in civil engineering from Lehigh University. He and his wife, Allison, a licensed professional counselor, live here in East Texas and are the parents of 3 children. Mike arrived at LeTourneau University in the summer of 2023, and it has been instrumental as well in helping design a new engineering building that is underway, an almost 100,000 square foot Christian Polytechnic University Center, housing most, but not everything, of engineering at LeTourneau University, and the School of Business and Entrepreneurship, our computer science and cybersecurity, the Center for Academic Ministry, and so much more. Super excited about that building and your fingerprints that will be on that building, Mike. Thank you for your time and willingness to have a conversation. And I suppose we'll dive in.
I'm excited. Let's jump right in.
Okay. Now, Mike, let's start with a question that I often ask my guests, and I'm curious. When you were, say, 10 years old, maybe 12, and someone asked you, what do you want to be when you grow up? How did you answer that question then?
I think I'd probably start with, I'm probably one of the least engineers you're ever going to meet, if you will. I think when I was 10, I wanted to be a veterinarian, loved animals, the whole thing. Lots of people go through that phase, right? Oh, I want to be a veterinarian when I grow up. Yeah. My dad's an engineer. So, we could dive in there.
Yeah.
It took a while to get toward engineering for me.
I'm curious, in light of that, when did you discover, hey, I'm pretty good at this engineering stuff? And then maybe I'd like to hear more about civil engineering in particular and what maybe really thrills you about civil. But was it clear at some point that you thought, wow, I think I need to be an engineer?
Well, again, circling back to my dad's an engineer, we also go through that phase. Well, I'm not going to do what my father did. Yeah. And so I went off to college to be an English major. Okay. So I was an English major. I was a psychology major. I was a history major. And I was drifting. And always very good at math and science. And I like clarity.
Mm-hmm.
I like, okay, there's an answer.
Yeah.
And at some point, the drifting, I just kind of looked in the mirror and said, the drifting needs to stop. And decided, okay, I'm going to change from English major, reading Shakespeare, to engineering.
Wow.
And what's really interesting, and this has to be his hand in it, I know it does. There was a guy down the hall in my dorm who was also, we're probably the only 2 in America ever to transfer from English into engineering. We both did it at the same time.
Wow.
And for me, now you can look back and you can see the fingerprints of, okay, so relational things, very important to me the whole time. I said, okay, well, let's do that together. Yeah. My dad's a mechanical engineer. Let's go into mechanical. And he said, no. He said, I'm going civil. And I said, we should go mechanical. And he said, I'm going civil. And I'm a civil engineer today.
Yes.
And I don't want to say it's just because I'm a follower. What I want to say is, well, that was right. But the relational aspects of let's do this together, in some ways have animated my career ever since. And the structural piece of civil in particular, civil is, roads and bridges and soils and environmental considerations. And some of those have exact answers. And some of those have, hold your finger to the wind and we're going to make a really good judgment call. And I loved at that time, especially the exact. And structural is the building will stand or the building will not.
Right. And
I really loved that. There's an answer and I can find out what it is. And for me at that time in my life, I needed that. So that's how did I really get in engineering that I don't always tell at parties. I went in because John Cunin, if you're listening, John Cunin wanted to be a civil engineer. And I said, okay, let's go do that. And it was absolutely the right choice for me. I love civil engineering and I love structures in particular. Love, even in the room that we're sitting in right now, I'm looking at the ceiling. Okay. So the load's going here and here and here.
Wow.
I just love it.
Wow. Yeah. It's so interesting because as I was just thinking about you, even preparing for this conversation, I thought to myself, I think Mike McGinnis is one of the most relational people that I know. And for me, that's just a huge compliment because you are all those other things too. And to sort of marry that relational side of you, and you just said it, but it makes so much sense in where your career has taken you and what you have now really forged through this T-shaped engineering that we'll talk about. That makes so much sense. It really does.
Yeah, it's been a journey, and I'm right where I need to be.
Yep.
It's been great.
Wow,
it's been great.
So when in the process did you figure, well, okay, so these are the things that I really like and love, and who I am, and what maybe the areas that I'm gifted, but I'm now going to go into academics because you are a professional engineer. You've got your, PE, your licensure and all that. But to go into the academic world, when did that dawn on you?
I got a master's degree at UConn. It was a great time to be a Husky. We hadn't won a national championship in men's basketball or women's basketball until right when I was finishing
Hard
up.
to imagine now.
It's very hard to imagine now. And went off to work at Electric Boat, and I really enjoyed it. But the things I liked the best were, again, circling back, okay, here's an answer, and now I figured out how to do it. Let's talk to the whole team about how to do that thing, in terms of we're not doing it quite right, or either not right at all, or not efficiently, or not well. And I still remember one of my colleagues and I, figuring out, okay, there's this particular stress analysis technique, and I have to be slow and careful here. Some of it's still classified, but there's this particular technique, and we're doing it this way, and it actually gives you the wrong answer. We need to funnel it through here, and this is the right way to do it. And first of all, figuring that out was fascinating. And second of all, talking to him about, now let's figure out how to educate the team to do it right every time. I just loved it. And what you probably don't know about me is, a little bit of a twisted family tree. So if you look at my tree in one way, I'm first generation, college graduate. But if you look at it another, my dad's a college professor. He just literally retired a couple weeks ago. My dad's dad is a college professor. My dad's dad's dad is a college professor.
Wow.
And so I'm fourth generation college professor. That's another way of looking at it. And so we had a lot of conversations, and so it was always sort of an option for me. And I'm so very grateful.
Yeah.
So, went off, had my first daughter, and then went off to graduate school at Lehigh, and away we went.
We're going to get back to academics, maybe proper, but I really want folks to hear just, some version. I know it's probably got to be briefer than we'd really like to be, but about your faith journey, and in particular about a misshelved book at Barnes & Noble. I actually forgot the misshelved part. I remember you telling me this story when we first met, but this is all part of how God has been at work. And would you mind sharing a little bit about that?
Yeah. So, I'm in my mid to late 30s. My career is good. Most everything else is not. Pretty dark place. I'm on a business trip. As you mentioned, I'm a relational person, so I get lonely on business trips, and things are pretty dark. My habit at that time was, okay, Barnes & Noble is open. I love to read, again, former English major. I'm in the, science fiction and fantasy section, and eye level, Tim Keller, The Reason for God, white spine in amongst all the, other books stood out. I picked it up, and I've just never put it down. He's so clear.
Yeah.
He's so honest. He's so kind. First person, I think for me, at least, as you can tell, I have somewhat of an analytical mind, and, faith needed to make some sort of logical sense. And Keller lays it all out so beautifully and points you to C.S. Lewis, who, in some ways even more logical than Keller. Yeah. But both of them so invitational, Keller especially. A reasonable person could think this. But if you go a little deeper, you'll see it's probably this way. But he never says to you, okay, you're just way off. Always the hand wide open to you. And Tim Keller changed my whole life. I always said, when somebody asks you that question, who do you want to have dinner with? Who's roaming around. I had an answer for a long time. He's passed pretty recently. Yeah. But even some of the very last things he wrote about that calling, hey, we need to create this entire Christian intellectual movement, and I feel really called by by Tim. And he wouldn't know me for me to call him Tim, but yeah, the Tim Keller, C.S. Lewis impact on my life has just been incalculable, and of course they led me to God, and that was the answer all along. Wow. So that's a little bit of it.
Yeah. You wonder, people like the Tim Kellers, maybe this goes for so many people whose name will never be famous, but when we get to heaven and get to say, you're the reason why I'm here, humanly speaking, that's pretty phenomenal.
Literally our pastor this weekend, he talked about a shoe salesman. And again, I don't remember his name. And this is the point. The shoe salesman who talked to a young man, who talked to this famous evangelist, who talked to this famous evangelist, who talked to Billy Graham. Yeah. And that we're both ordinary and extraordinary at the same time. And we have no idea which it is. Yeah. And that moment where it's no longer through a glass darkly will be so fascinating. Wow. In terms of, okay, this ordinary moment was actually extraordinary. Right. And I mean, Keller's, so many of his moments were extraordinary, at least for me. But I don't know which of my moments are.
Which one are they?
Are extraordinary and which are just going to get the groceries. I'm not sure.
Cool. So we'll fast forward a little bit from, let's say, that really monumental, life-changing, eternally life-changing moment and season for you. And you had a successful career at state schools and doing other things and being a scholar and teacher, and yet you were drawn to LeTourneau University. What led you to LeTourneau? Why did you feel compelled to make a change after academic success and leadership at other places?
Well, I was not looking. I had worked on contentment actually as a life skill. I think contentment is underrated as a life skill. And I had really kind of wrestled it, I thought, to the ground at that point. Okay, this is where I'm at. And I'd had that moment in church. Our worship leader preaches periodically, and he was talking about kingdom work, and he defined the kingdom as, that place where God's will is active. And I that whole sermon I'd always wondered, should I be doing more? Should I be doing this? Should I be doing that? And it kind of just that light bulb moment of, Mike, you're in a position where you're influencing young people. You've got a voice at this point. You've got a lot of influence. Just do it more for him. Yeah. And that's kind of where I was at in my career at that point. And LeTourneau reached out and said, hey, we need an engineering dean. And the more I knew, the more I found out, the more excited I got. And I've told you, and I'll tell you right here on air in terms of your book, LeTourneau University as the Christian Polytechnic University, it was like lightning bolt to the forehead moment for me. And I just love what you crafted. I loved, both the saga aspect. Okay, so this is the past, and the vision casting. Okay, this is the future. I mean, I'm a frameworks guy, and it's all right there. And I just loved it.
Soon after you came, I remember, I don't know how long it was, but it wasn't that long after you arrived that you started talking about the T-shaped engineer, and you were kind of experimenting with that language. Correct me if I'm wrong, and thinking through, man, is that the best way to characterize what I'm sensing and feeling, what I want to convey, and what I think is so important about being a very thoughtful, well-rounded Christian engineer? Tell us what that is and what you mean and why it matters, this T-shaped engineering thing.
We're both smiling because at this point now I'm like the T-shaped guy.
Yeah.
And so it's sort of, I almost want to laugh just thinking about it, but I had been capital T-shaped for a long time.
Yeah.
In engineering, for 40 or 50 years, they've been saying, oh, these egg-headed engineers, that can do, all the pencil calculations, have their calculator just so, really can talk to a computer well, but they can't talk to people. So the soft skills, the professional skills, I've heard them called power skills. I'm not a big fan of that term. But so I've been doing capital T, so if you picture a capital T, the STEM is the technical stuff. So if you're an engineer, like I know you are, thermodynamics or electricity or heat transfer or mechanics or whatever it is, all that kind of going down that spine of the T, but all those softer skills going across the top. That's the world I came from. And then, I started looking at LeTourneau and I said, I've only got that partially right. This is only a part of the story. And in fact, I'm missing the biggest part of the story, which is of course God. And I don't know where it came from at first in terms of, no, this needs to be lowercase.
Yeah.
This needs to be a lowercase T, and that last little upper piece that turns a capital into a lowercase T. Well, that's the God part. That's the centering this whole thing on what does he want and what are we supposed to be doing for him and what are we supposed to be stewarding. And so I came and I talked some about that. And actually our provost here, who's a pretty smart guy, said, I said to him, well, I'm going to do this lowercase T-shaped thing. Yeah. And he said, why don't you go talk to the theology guys about it? Make sure it's biblical, make sure, nothing. And I'll tell the rest of the story if we've got time. Yeah. So I went and I walked across campus, and it was a pretty hot summer day. And I walked in and I went to talk to Victor. Yeah. And I never can pronounce his last name. It starts
Rutkowski, Dr. Rutkowski.
And I sat in his office and he was kind to me. And I said, I'm going to do this T-shaped engineering thing. And he said, no. And so we'll just stop the interview here. He said, no, we can't do that. And I made exactly the face I'm making now, sort of. I'm kind of building up this thing. And I think it's actually what we're already doing here at LeTourneau and have been for decades.
Yeah. What's the problem here? Yeah.
And he said, no, he said, Mike, you don't separate God out of things. If there's good things in that technical stuff that you're talking about, he's right there. If there is good things in those soft skills, those power skills, and in fact, I want to be very clear, I like to call them relational skills. Those are exactly the skills that we use to actually relate to other people, circling all the way back to the conversation we've been having the whole time. How do we connect to people? How do we, communicate with people? How are we in ethical relationships with them? That's what those skills are. Anyway, if there are good things there, Mike, he's there too. You can't just separate him out. He's not up there. He's not over there. He's in all the good things. And I was like, and he was right. And he was dead right. He was dead right. And, but I did say to him, Victor, I think the cross shape gives it away.
Yeah.
And he says, oh, okay. And so Victor and I basically have this agreement now, which every time I talk about the T-shaped engineer, I always circle back to, it's cross-shaped for a reason. It's not an accident.
Yeah.
The shape alone is a theological claim. It is we are cross-shaped. To me, engineering by definition is not just math and science to solve problems. It is, the greatest commandment to love God and love people expressed through, using math and science to solve problems, to build up his kingdom. Like it starts with the greatest commandment. It starts there. And Victor helped me to make sure I express it that way correctly, if you will, every time. I'm very grateful. So that's the T-shaped engineer. So we have a technical piece, we have this relational piece, and we have this Christ-centered purpose piece where the whole thing points toward him and, cross-shaped from, beginning to end.
Yeah.
That's the goal.
Man, love that. Yeah. Whether it's a technical aspect or a relational, it's from him, through him, and to him are all things, and it's super helpful. I mean, and what I love about it is it's simple too, but it is profound and simple at the same time. And so you have written this really compelling book because you take all of that and then you think about, we're in the so-called age of AI, and that presents a whole host of questions and conundrums, potentially, challenges, opportunities, and all of that. And so you've written this book, and I'm just going to say it again. This was so fun to read, and it's so Mike McGinnis as well, because it's very personalized. And you talk about hard things. You talk about, things that have gone well for you, things that have been difficult, and that personalized style of writing, and yet you talk about complex matters as well, is really compelling, and it's just such a joy to read. So I suppose my question is, tell us about the journey in terms of deciding, I think I need to write a book about this, because not everything turns into a book, but it has.
There's stuff in there that, like, if I read it now, it still chokes me up. But now, so the AI thing, if you will, it came on us slow and then fast.
Yeah.
And now it's lightning fast. But when it was coming on slow, I was one of these that, we're going to talk about AI again. We're going to talk about AI again. And I was that guy.
Yeah.
And, I went off to the Christian Engineering Conference, and it was in Oregon that year. And they had a theologian as the keynote speaker, and he was going to talk about AI. And I didn't want to go. I'm like, come on, let's talk about, whatever the next. And so Jacob Schatzer spoke. I think he's at Union, and he's an amazing speaker. And he basically related, what does it mean to be human, and what does God want and desire, and what is his plan and purpose for us, to AI. And it was so convicting. And by the time I walked out of that room, it was almost like a 180 for me. It was, okay, so I am the Dean of Engineering at the Christian Polytechnic University, and I have no opinion about AI. This is professional malpractice. This is not okay. And so then I went, and so this is what was tumbling through my mind for the next month or so. And then we had a retreat here. And Jonathan Lett and Kelly Liebengood curated a retreat, Koinonia, and it was all about the digital age and sort of slowing down. And again, what's God calling us to? And what are you spending your attention on? And those two events so close together just sort of crystallized something in me, and things have just been like, these thoughts have just been sort of pouring out ever since. And so I wrote an abstract to a conference at Baylor, and I looked at that abstract for about a day, and I said, no, I have more to say than that. And then I said, all right, I think this is a journal article. So I wrote the journal article, and I sat it on the shelf for about a day, and I looked at it and said, no, I think I have more to say than this. And the book just kind of poured out of me in a summertime. And my mom likes it. So she's very unbiased. She likes it.
Of course.
And so, yeah, I did enjoy writing it. And I hope there's something helpful in there for some folks. And it is personal, but also I think hopefully useful for folks as they're trying to discern where are we going with this tool.
The rate at which technology is advancing in our world today can be overwhelming.
Technology is the dominant story of the modern world. We are more powerful than any human generation in history, but we do not seem to be more happy.
We think all of our problems are at bottom technological dilemmas that can be solved with technological fixes.
People are doing things just because technology will let them do it.
As long as there is sin and computers in the world, people need cybersecurity.
Made for More, A Computer Science Journey is a new short documentary from LeTourneau University and the Face Science and Technology Initiative. In it, 4 college students give an up-close and personal account of how they're wrestling with big questions about what it means to follow Jesus through their calling as computer scientists and how to make sense of the daunting things happening in the world today. You can stream Made for More, A Computer Science Journey for free on LeTourneau University's YouTube channel or watch it on Right Now Media.
I want to, if you would, for you to just share a pretty important feature of the book, and that is this 2x2 matrix for navigating AI and a sort of a learning posture. Would you help us with that a little bit and give our audience a little taste of what's in here?
Again, I'm a frameworks person, and the whole point of that book was to try to both humanize what's going on and then give some folks, okay, well, this is what we ought to do about it. A big part of the impetus was I saw a lot of this is what it is. I saw very little, this is what we ought to do about it. This is where we ought to go. And I couldn't find it. I couldn't find, what I thought were credible, voices out there saying, well, and this means this is what we ought to do about it. And so that was a big goal there. And so one of the tools that very early on in the book I talk about is this 2x2 matrix for discernment. Pretty simple. And Josh Brake, actually, he's a big 2x2 matrix guy, and Josh Brake.
Yeah.
And so I talked to him recently, and I thought, all right, well, what are the key features here? And so one of the axes on this is the student's posture toward their own learning. This is what I think about my own formation, my own learning. And they can go from either I have to do this versus I get to do this. And this is a huge thing. And my friend Mike Gangone talks about they get to do this all the time. And this idea of I have to do that hard homework assignment. I have to go to class today. Or I get to do that hard homework assignment. I get to go to class today. I get to write that essay about AI. I get to. It just changes everything.
Right.
And in so many ways, I think that axis, if we can't get our students to, I get to do this, we're in big trouble. We're just in big trouble. Because, it's always been possible to sort of short circuit our formation. I mean, I hope they're here and in places like LeTourneau for, mind, heart, and soul change. I think that's what we want them here for. In other words, and those are T-shaped when you think about it, right? I mean, technical, relational, and for him, I hope they're here, to grow in all those ways. But you kind of have to be get to do that. So get to versus have to on one axis. And sorry, I'm always long-winded. I talk for a living.
That's
great. And then across the other is sort of the professor's approach to what am I going to do about AI in my class and in my program? Am I going to fence it out completely? Or am I going to just invite it all the way in, no holds barred? And so across that axis, we start to look at combining that with the other one. And of course they blend together some. The student's posture changes what the faculty member does and vice versa. But I think there are 2 places then that points us toward that are important for formation of students. One, that place where students have that get-to mindset, but faculty have sort of deliberately trying to keep AI out of whatever that formational experience is. And, all models are bad, but one of the models of cognitive development is Bloom's taxonomy, the idea of we take sort of simple things and we gradually build up to more and more advanced levels of thinking, till we get to like design and judgment and evaluation, those very higher order levels of thinking. Not a perfect model, but we can't do higher order thinking if we haven't built our skills from the beginning. And so those foundational skills where we really need to develop some of our own intuition early on, maybe that's a get to AI fenced out moment. And I call joyful and wise that moment, joyful and wise, that moment of, okay, we're going to use AI to go further, to investigate nuance, and AI's here. Mm-hmm. It's here. Mm-hmm. Fencing it out in terms of in the professional career, probably not going to happen at this point. So we have to teach them how to use this with some discernment and some wisdom. And in that quadrant where we're doing that, again, discernment and wisdom, we're thinking about, is this forming me in the right ways? Mm-hmm. And I get to do it because I'm changing, my heart's changing, my mind's changing, my soul's changing in good ways. Yeah, that's the 2x2. So get to versus have to, and no AI versus versus AI in.
And I love the pairing of joyful and wise as that sort of upper right quadrant, if I remember the 2x2, where you find the best mix, more than likely, of how to harness AI in a wise way, and how to think about learning in a get to way with joy.
And even whether it's a student pursuit or even our own professional pursuits, the why? Yeah. I mean, the why really matters, right? So yeah, I just think we want to keep in mind what we're here for, what we're doing, and that really helps us with the discernment overall. Yeah.
There's so many wonderful voices now speaking about the appropriate uses of AI instead of just being a so-called Luddite. We just can't. It just can't use it at all. We're just going to put technology to the side. It's all bad. And, I think it is Josh Brake who I've adopted his language, and this is going back a couple of years now, that when he talked about the importance of AI, thinking about it as it extending human agency versus replacing what it means to be human. Now you have to unpack all that. What does that mean? Yes. But I like that. And you really say similar things in here with what does it mean to harness advancing technology in ways that can be for the human flourishing and the greater good without dehumanizing us, in the process. Well, that's an important feature of the book that sort of helps fill out and lay a foundation for all the things that you treat in the book. And one of those are your insights about how the T-shaped engineer and this 2x2 posture towards AI fold into your research on what's called the big 6 factors for a meaningful or valuable college experience. Those 6 things, I'll let you define it maybe better than I could. The things that are most important for students to flourish and really to get out all the things that they would want out of their college experience and learning. Yeah.
So I think, what's the expression when you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. The more I look, the more T-shaped things I find, if you will. And so pretty big famous study, the Big Six, Purdue, Gallup, the Lumina Foundation surveyed alumni from hundreds of universities across the country, secular, private, public, all kinds, big, small, you name it, looking for the kinds of experience in college that led to the big life after college. I always use the big life, and it's things we would pray for our children. They're engaged at work. They have people that love them and that they can love. They understand their finances. Their mental health is good. Their physical health is good. The kinds of things we want for them. They're plugged into their community. The big life. And so they found 6 things which were very well correlated. Correlation, not causation, but very well correlated. Things that you experience in college that led to that big life. And they would you like to know what they are?
Please.
Of course, I always stop here. Would you like to know what they are?
Yeah, for sure.
And so I had a professor that cared about me as a person. Mm-hmm. I had a professor that made me excited to learn. Mm. I found an encouraging mentor on the one hand, and on the other hand, the other 3, I worked on a long-term project. I was extremely active in extracurriculars, and extremely active is always italicized or underlined, or right. Not just I did some extracurriculars, but I was extremely active. So I was plugged in, I was engaged. Right. And then I had an internship. Okay. So and so you kind of look at them, and okay, through my lens, they look, okay, the first three are very relational. Somebody really cared about me.
Mm-hmm.
And the other three are very sort of technical, experiential.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that fascinating. And we started to measure here, well, how do our students do across those measures? And nationwide, only about 3% of students across the country experience all 6 of these.
Okay.
3%, only 3%. And here we measured, and I think it was 46%. We keep them too busy, extremely active in extracurriculars. If you count senior design, then we'd be higher than 46.
Yeah.
But that's like an order of magnitude better.
Yeah.
So that was kind of phase 1, and it was exciting. And so we're doing good things, and we can look at the places where, okay, well, how do we encourage students to do this or that? But I think you know where I'm going to go next. I'm going to go right back to Victor's office, if you will, and we seem to be separating him out. Like it's a secular study.
Yeah. Him being God, not Victor.
Right. Yes. There we go.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Where is God in all this? And that's been actually the latest work I've been working on is so many of us, we say, well, if our students, when they come here, their faith will grow. Their faith will grow. I wanted to measure it.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, one could argue whether you can quantify faith or not. And long story short, lots of lunches with the theology guys, and we came up with a set of questions and a rubric for, okay, is your relationship with God growing? Can you tell me who God is? Is your faith your own? Are you equipped to mentor others in their faith? Things of this nature.
Yeah.
And we investigated those as well. Sort of the missing piece, if you will, of the lowercase t framework here. We've got these 6 things, but does your faith grow? And we did this very recently, and what we showed is statistical evidence that faith does grow here for engineering students, which is pretty fascinating because the most cited resource I can find, and Aston is one of the authors, says that that studying engineering is actually strongly associated with faith decline in college.
Wow. And
so if you start from that, that's not what I found.
Mm-hmm.
What I found is faith really grows here.
Yeah.
And in fact, then we looked at certain practices, and we could be here all day, so you could tell I'm excited. But faith can grow. You have to be intentional, and you have to build, and it's relational all the way down. Right. I will let you look behind the curtain. It's relational. If we build relationships and talk about faith with students, their faith grows. And I actually just presented that very recently, and there's a story there too. It was pretty fascinating, but yeah, so big 6, but there's really a 7th thing which should permeate the other 6.
Right.
Again, God is in the middle of all of it.
Right.
God's in the middle of all of it.
Good stuff. I love it. Love it. So you've emerged, and we've sort of alluded to that in a way already, even in my opening comments introducing you, as you've emerged as a national leading voice in Christian higher ed for engineering education. What kind of things are you doing across the country to stimulate and inspire engineering educators on top of this fabulous book you've got? But, and why go beyond LeTourneau? I mean, you've got plenty of work to do here, and why do you feel the importance of helping others on a national scale?
Well, first of all, it really matters. I think we have something that folks need. Both my daughters studied engineering at Big State U, and I'll just tell you, they did not get all 6 of the Big 6.
Yeah.
And it wasn't close.
Yeah.
And then the 7th, absolutely not. And one of my daughters was in huge danger of getting lost, and my friend and I made sure she was found. And anyway, that's the personal, but our voice is important, but we need to speak, I think, nationwide in one voice, if we can, about how important it is to study engineering from a Christian perspective. We have the answer. The age that we're in now, the disconnection, the anxiety, the depression, the lack of grit, the attention span issues. In some ways, I think the T-shaped engineer is the answer to so much of that. Like, what are we here for? I really do. And I think more people will find out if we can kind of all come together and speak with one voice. So that's been the impetus for all of it. That national voice, and frankly, you're an inspirer. Your LeTourneau needs to deliberately speak into that intersection of faith, science, and technology, because I think, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but because you feel God wants us to, and we're equipped to do so. And
somewhat of a responsibility. I feel not just, this is a great thing that we need to do for some other reason.
I talk about, I feel like, I say this to my children, you got big scoops. God gave you big scoops of things, use them wisely. And I feel that way in this space. So that's been the impetus. In terms of what I'm doing, I am, I guess, in some intentional way, trying to be a convener for that exact reason, for that reason. Not for anybody's name other than his name. But the Christian Engineering Leaders Summit. I came from a place where all the engineering deans in Texas get together once a year and we talk about, well, how do we do engineering in Texas better? Well, and I looked around and there just wasn't a platform for that nationwide for Christian engineering deans, if you will. And I said, well, we need to do that. So we had our third one of those this summer. Overall, over 30 schools have participated. Over the 3 years we've been doing that, and it's a real encouragement to leaders to know, okay, we're in this together. So trying to convene the conversation in that way. Again, the man who hired me into higher education, into academia, Ron Welch, is Christian, and he's a mountain of a man. I think I'm going to say it, Ron, he's probably 5'6", but he is a mountain. He's a giant. And, he taught me how to teach engineering and is very responsible for the ASCE, American Society of Christian you can see where my mind is, American Society of Civil Engineers teaching workshop, very influential, but there's not something out there that is teaching people how to teach Christianly. And in that space where we're going to put God in the middle of all of that. And so we had the very first one of those this summer. My colleagues from Cedarville and Dort and Messiah, the four of us got together and crafted, I think, a pretty amazing 2-day experience to help some less experienced faculty. What does this mean to teach for him? Equipping them with some technical, some relational, and some, how do you weave your faith in the right ways and keep it in the middle of everything? So,
we're all in this together. And, obviously we believe wholeheartedly in what we're doing here at LeTourneau University as the Christian Polytechnic University, and want more and more people to experience what we have here. And so thanks for being a leader. That's awesome. Okay. Now, in this book, when I read through it, you've got, you say that you've got 3 books on your desk at all times. And I just think I'm just curious about why those 3 books and why are they so important to you?
So, the reason for God's on my desk. I keep it on my, when I was at a secular place, I kept it on my desk because I wanted people to ask me about it. And I had 4 or 5 copies underneath my desk. And so if somebody would ask me about it, they did not get to leave the office without a copy of it, essentially. Cool. I wouldn't force it on them, but, so I've given many of those away, and it changed my life. It changed everything for me. So I've given many of those away. The Way Things Work, it's an older book, but it's sort of an illustrated guide to engineering. It's been around for a while. It's pretty winsome. I like it. I read it when I was probably 13 or so, and it's fun. And I actually, in some ways, the one I think that's the most unusual for an engineer to have on their desk is Mike Mulligan. Mike Mulligan and his steam shovel. I just love it. I love Virginia Lee Burton. I carried a manila folder around for a number of years with notes on, hey, I'm going to write a journal article about Virginia Lee Burton. So many of her stories, folks may remember, again, the Mike Mulligan story, but The Little House was a Caldecott Award winner, I think. Katie and the Big Snow, Mabel and the Cable Car, I don't know, lots of them. Engineering is just scattered all throughout them. I mean, Mike Mulligan is like a tour de force for civil engineers. I mean, he builds airports, he builds buildings, he builds roads. I mean, you name it, he's building it, and it's great. And then he can't build anymore. And he, Marianne's worn out, and so she's going to get thrown in the trash heap, and he doesn't. And Mike says that he loves Marianne. I mean, and here we are, love and engineering right in the middle of the story. And I know it's a kid's story, but I get choked up thinking about this little kid story. I see kid stories as parable-like, if you will. I mean, sketched in simple details, lots to see. Keller talks about parables being, hiding things from the hardened, opening up things for the seeking. Mike Mulligan is in some ways that way for me. Wow. And I just love it. So, those are the three that are on my desk.
Well, I love hearing about that, because part of why I wanted for us to have a conversation is for people to get to know you, and it's so well communicates who you are. And I love that. And I love the idea that when you come to LeTourneau University, that you get to rub shoulders with you and people like you, and real people with who are honest and about their strengths and weaknesses and ups and downs, and in your particular way, inspiring us to seek the Lord and our neighbor and God's calling upon our life, even with its twists and turns. And so, because our time is fleeting, I've got a few final questions, but I do want I wanted to ask you what excites you right now about what's happening at LeTourneau University as the Christian Polytechnic University.
Well, you mentioned the building.
Yeah.
I definitely want to get to that.
Yeah.
But literally on the way here, walking down the sidewalk, our Baja team is packing up to go to competition. And so I love seeing students excited. And probably the only thing that sort of disappoints me about my role now is I don't actually get to teach very much. And it, but seeing students come alive, I love that. I have a plan for next year to rub shoulders and get to talk to more students. So I'm excited about that. We've talked some about an aerospace engineering degree and sort of looking at, okay, we have this amazing aviation program and we have this amazing engineering program, and sitting right there, just like a jewel that could be right in the middle of them. Yeah. Okay, so aerospace and flying all at the same time. Yes, please. Yeah. So anyway, sorry. The building. Yes. The building. When I applied for the job, one of the things in the advertisement was help us determine what we need for this new building. And I mentioned in my letter, hey, I've helped these civil engineering teams design new buildings on paper. And you're telling me I might get to take this building, which is going to be on paper, and have it be in real life? Yes, please. Yeah. And so I'm excited about the way we've talked about it and the way we've conceived about it. The idea of, I'm probably most excited about two spaces in it. If I can gush a little. Yeah. The applied learning laboratories, the idea of, hey, lots of places teach statics or mechanics of materials. Let's actually think through how to make the room itself, make that subject come alive. The room itself is a catalyst for learning. That, perhaps there's a coordinate system in that corner of the room, and we can stretch out vectors from there, or all the teaching tools, the physical demos. And Ron Welch, who I mentioned earlier, is like a nationally known physical demos guy. And I sat at his feet for a long time. So all the physical demos are in there in the room and integrated in just the right way. The faculty member doesn't have to haul something there. It's already there. And we've thought it through. And even the artwork on the walls is there to inspire in this specific topic. So, we're trying really hard to curate that learning experience in these applied learning laboratories. And then, so that makes me very happy. And we kind of have them across all the tracks in our School of Engineering. And then we have, I think, what will be the nation's first engineering relationships lab. The T-shaped lab, if you will. a place that looks like, okay, well, we're going to practice this type of interaction, and maybe it's all going to be video recorded, and we can analyze it and talk about your nonverbals and talk about, oh, well, you didn't involve that teammate, or, you didn't make eye contact here, or, so just the practice of relationship. Frankly, that's what determines the strength and the breadth and the depth of someone's career, typically in engineering. Yeah. And yet we all say we're going to turn out folks that do that well. Yeah. Well, we're kind of putting our effort right where our talk is. And I love that we're going to do that. So those are the kinds of things that, I would say keep me up at night, but actually, no, I'm sleeping good because I think we're heading in the right direction. Yeah, that's awesome. I'm excited about all those things as well. Well, I want to give you a final word of anything of any sort that's on your mind and heart about what you might have for or say to a prospective student or family considering where to go to college. Maybe they're considering LeTourneau University. What might you say? I think maybe two things. A final word is just too short for me. Sorry. I wish I had known what I know now when I was looking for my kids and their college and even like when they were 10. I wish I'd known to start, because you got to kind of start early. I wish I'd known about the big six, and in fact about that seventh thing that I've talked about. In other words, ask those kind of questions. Are they going to have somebody that really cares about them, who's going to invest in them as a person, and not, here's your homework back, 100512. Right. And then, is somebody going to talk to them about their relationship with the Lord? So I wish I'd known that, certainly. And I talk to parents about that a lot. And then I always talk to them, and this may seem counterintuitive, but these are the reasons why you might not make it. So if you come here, these are the reasons you might not make it. And I tell them three things. I tell them, first of all, when you go to college, become a part of something. Really become a part of something. And it's tough, but because if you're shy, that's not easy. And I always tell them, go to that first Baja meeting, go to that first Concrete Canoe meeting, and just get one name. Just get one name that first time. And then you can go back and one name and get a second name the second time. And by the third time, you'll probably be known. Yeah. Go 3 times. That's my request. So, number one, go 3 times. Pick something and go 3 times. I'm going to develop a website or an app about, how to meet people. It's going to be called 3 times. But anyway, we're off track. So go 3 times. And the second one I say is you probably overscheduled. And I talked to them a bit about the rule of 60, the idea of if you're scheduled for more than 60 hours of stuff in a week, that you're probably not setting yourself up for success. And if you're an engineer, 15 hours of class plus a couple hours outside of class for every hour, you're at 45 hours already. You haven't brushed your teeth yet. It's real easy to get to 60. Yeah. You tuck video games and, goofing off on whatever the platform is. I don't want to date myself and pick a platform right now. And 60 is really, so you're overscheduled. And then the third one, and I think this is maybe, I don't know, it's the saddest in some sense to me, is you're struggling and you don't tell somebody. I get to early December and I find out you didn't understand something we were doing in September. Or I get to September or December and I find out as a faculty member that you're struggling with, anxiety or depression or whatever it is. And just tell somebody. Tell somebody early. Yeah. We have a writing center. We have a counseling center. We have a math center. I care about you. I will help. And, I'm speaking as if I am lots of different faculty members, but I've met the faculty members here. Right. I know the faculty. I know them as people and they care about you, but they, let somebody know. And that's, lots of places. That's what I tell people. This is an amazing place. The Christian Polytechnic is real. We sort of started as a STEM place. And we're STEM at the core and we've got great humanities. We've got great theology. But it's a very unique saga as you convinced me, several years ago. Yeah. And so I just love it. Well, thanks, Mike. Well, we love you, and I could not be
more excited about all these students and the next cohort of students that will be coming in the fall and online and otherwise that get to either learn from you directly or from your influence on campus. And what you are embodying is that T-shaped engineer. You obviously are super sound technically, or you wouldn't, be able to do the things you do, but you bring that relational sphere of qualities that are both technically and relationally driven and imbued with all the love of Jesus. And we just thank you for that. Super excited about what's ahead at LeTourneau. Thankful for the ways that you're helping lead this institution. And I really hope people get your book. And whatever the next book is, there's probably some other book in your head that we need to, maybe we'll do another podcast one day soon. But this is great work. And thank you for all the ways that you're living out your calling here at LeTourneau. And there's so much more we could talk about, but I'm thankful for our time today. Thank you for what you're doing at LeTourneau and the way you're leading here.
Thank you. I've been really blessed, and to know that God loves me just changed everything for me.
Yeah.
And so it's been quite a ride. I'm having a ball.
Awesome. Thanks. Appreciate it.